DM Scotty's Tilescapes, the isometric terrain system. Craft them all. Wow your friend.
Hey crafters, welcome to the next episode of Tilescapes. Now the first episode we showed how the system worked, and then the next episode I did the tiles themselves. And now we're going to talk about the fronts. I'm really just showing the very basic fronts that you could do for this, a couple really basic ones. But we are going to do tons more fronts for this over the course of time. And you know, we also have the 3D elements that line the walls, like windows and doors and that kind of thing. We're also going to do those. But yeah, this is just going to start us out on the fronts. And once you kind of have this basic thing down, you can really make anything out of this Tilescape system. So let's go to the table and I'll show you how to start those fronts. Alright guys, I cut the front out of the cardboard. I'm going to use these skinny sticks to line it to give it strength, right? And they're just basically half-size popsicle sticks. So I'm just going to put these around. Now the windows are a ½ inch from the base. The doors are inch and a half tall, an inch wide, and the windows are an inch wide, and they're 2/3 of an inch tall. The front itself is 2 inches tall and 6 inches wide, of course, to fit the tiles themselves. So I'm just going to line that with these sticks, and that gives it a lot of reinforcement, that cardboard, a lot of reinforcement, and so that's just easy enough to do. Also covers up that corrugation. Now I'm going to use this 1/4 inch cardstock, and I'm going to start adding details to the front. Now you know how these medieval houses have these kind of wooden details on the front, and that's what I'm kind of trying to mimic with this technique. I could use the sticks, but you know, it's just easier to use the paper, and it's going to look just as good when we paint it. So I'm just going for kind of ease of doing this, you know. So I'm going to cut all those details out, top of the door there, got the edges of the windows. It's really starting to fill in now, looking good. So whatever pattern you want to do, just make your own happy little pattern. And I'm going to do kind of a cross beam there. Just give it a little more interest. I'm just doing all this by holding it right up to the front and measuring it. Just pop it in there, and I'll glue these details in, a little more on the bottom. Alright, it's really starting to look like a nice little medieval house front there. Okay, now I'm going to take this barbecue skewer and put it at the edge of the door. This will be the door edging, and I'll just put some white glue in there, and that'll reinforce it as well as just hide that corrugation. Alright, cool. Now I'm working on another front. This is actually going to be a stone building. I'm using the same 1/4 inch, but I'm going to cut it in blocks. So these are going to kind of simulate stone blocks that are jutting out from the front of the front, and this will simulate the stone texture. And I really don't have to cover the whole thing with these stones. Just these few stones I'm going to put on here will really give you the idea that this is made out of stone, and you'll see really how it looks when we paint it. So I'll put a few more on there and be done. Okay, now the door is just out of those thinner sticks. I've glued 4 together with white glue, let it dry, and it's an inch and a half tall by an inch wide. And I'm going to add this popsicle skewer, and this is going to be the pivot point for the door, so I can actually open the door, which is so cool. I really like that detail on these. And just cut that out and let it harden up. Now the base is going to be a thin piece of cardboard and a regular piece of cardboard. And you can see I've cut it so the front will fit on it there. And I've put a line on it. That's where the tile will sit behind the front, right, on top of it. Now I'm going to poke a hole into the point where I have the pivot point for the door, and then I'll cut that excess off. Make sure that pivots nicely. Put it back in the front, and then glue that down with the hot glue. Make sure it's at 90-degree angle there. And let it harden up. And that's basically a front. Now we just have to add a few more details. So I'm going to do some steps. I'm going to use a popsicle stick here and just cut 1 inch long lengths. Sand those up a little bit. I've got my 3 pieces, and I'll start gluing them on there. All right, I put this right in front of the door, but it doesn't matter because the door is going to open inward, so that's cool. And then I'll do another, and I'm going to put another one on top of it to make it a little wider there. All right, cool. Nice little stone stairs there. Now I want to hide this corrugation because, well, we don't want to see the corrugation on the front. So I'll start putting some hot glue there. I want to have it like a nice little gentle sloping hill in the front of the house. So I'll just fill that in first. It's better to do it several applications instead of trying to all group it on at once. That's what I found. Okay, so I cut the excess off. And so it's rounded in the front. It's still square in the back because that's going to be under the tile actually, so it won't matter. So I'm going to add some more detail to the front. And this is to make it look like ground, okay? So there we go, really filling it in. Nice little sloped hill there. Looking great. Now some texture on the stairs. That'll make them look more like stone. Just a little bit, not too much. Looking great, looking great. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing for the stone front. This is basically, I've just built the base for the front there. Poke the hole through there, put the door in. And now I'll glue the front on, just like I did the other. Now you can see I've got actually shutters on this house, and I'll show you how I did those in a minute. They're just basically mini doors. Now I'm going to cut that excess off. Get it rounded in the front and square in the back. I'm not worried about the square because the tile's going to go over it. Fill in that hill there. Some excess glue. Make it look like ground. I'm going to do a little pathway to the door, and this is a neat technique. Just pulling hot glue out from the door, and while it's still a little warm, I'm going to take the nozzle and do circles. And that'll make a little look like a stone path. That's really cool when we get it painted. You'll see what that looks like. All right, sweet. All right, now for my medieval, the first house we did, the medieval house, I want to do the medieval front. I want to do 3/4 of an inch wide strip that I'm going to use for the windows, but I'm doing it, I'm doing it catacorner on the material I'm using, which is just a cross point material you can get at the craft store. And so it gives that kind of lattice look that those medieval buildings have with the leaded windows. Okay, so now I'll cut that excess off. I'm just going to measure it by putting it right in the house. I'm going to cut a little bigger than the opening so I can kind of, the corrugation will kind of hold it in there. All right, sweet. So I'm just going to put some white glue. The white glue is not great for sticking plastic, but I'm just really trying to hold it in place. I'm not really that worried about it, saturating into the material. Do this other window and be done. So now the stone house, you can see I have a few other of those stones on the front. But I'm going to put some toothpicks in here. And these are going to be the points of pivot for the shutters. So I've got a piece of cardboard and just glue the corrugation where the corrugation was. And I'll just pop that right on the toothpick, and that'll work for the pivot point for the shutter. All right, sweet. That's just really easy. It looks really cool. Okay, and I'm going to use these woodsies, which are basically small dowels. You could use toothpicks for this. I just had these, so I'm going to use them. I'm just going to fill in that corrugation on the edge so it doesn't have that open corrugation on these shutters. And I'll just glue that in, cut it to length and glue it in. There we go. Give it some strength as well as just hide that corrugation edge there. All right, nice. Looking great. Okay, so now I'm going to hide that corrugation on the back where the tile will be. I'm just going to use a thin cardstock. This is like a printer cardstock. It's even thinner than the normal, like cereal box cardstock. But you could use that too. And just get that ready. I'm going to use that same cardstock on the front of the door because I want to kind of simulate cross beams on the front door there. And I don't want it sticking out too far to get in the way of the door opening and this and that. Or get caught, actually. So I'll just glue those down. So looking good. All right, sweet. Now I'm going to do a little door handle here. I'm just using a 3/4 inch cardstock and then cut an interesting shape. There we go. Just glue it right on there. Now I want to kind of fill in the turf in the front of the house, and I'm going to use my construction sand, or actually it's actually called all-purpose sand, and we'll just glue some of that down. And I really hope you guys join me for the next episode of Tilescapes, because we're going to finish these up and see how easy and great these look. Hey, I hope you find these tips helpful. If you did, give your old DM Scotty a thumbs up, and that'd be a like. Also, check out my forum and Facebook group, a bunch of wonderful people on there. And if you do like these vids, consider tipping. There is a little tip thing on the video. You can click on that and tip directly to your DM Scotty. And if you want to go take it further than that, you can go to Patreon and become a supporter and a member of the family. I have a monthly magazine called The Crafter's Lair, which you'll have instant access to when you become a supporter. Take care. Have fun gaming.